Lesson 6, Part 2, The Western Accent, Giọng Tây. In this lesson, we'll be discussing Giọng Tây, that is, Vietnamese spoken with a Western accent. Not to be confused with Giọng miền Tây, which is the accent of the Mekong Delta region of South Vietnam. Just to be clear, Giọng Tây is not an official term. It's just the term I've chosen to use. Before we continue, let's make sure we're all on the same page. I'll assume you've watched the last lesson on the 3 traditional Vietnamese accents, Giọng Bắc, Giọng Trung, và Giọng Nam. In this video and at this stage, I'm not expecting you to be able to fully read any of the Vietnamese you'll see on screen. It's only there for demonstration purposes. Okay, so with that said, chúng ta bắt đầu. So what is the definition of Giọng Tây? I've chosen to define it quite broadly, as a fusion of the various Vietnamese accents with the accents of the various Western languages. By far the most common type of Giọng Tây is the combination with the various English accents, specifically the Aussie, American, British, Canadian, and Kiwi accents. But we shouldn't forget the other Western countries that also resettled Vietnamese refugees, namely France, Germany, Norway, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Belgium, Finland, Switzerland, Austria, Italy, and any others I may have forgotten. Each of these countries having their own set of accents. Basically, if you were born in or grew up in a Western country, then you probably have this accent. It's only natural that a language will evolve as it settles into a new environment. Just like how our parents can't speak English without a Vietnamese accent, we also cannot speak Tiếng Việt without a Western accent. For the rest of the lesson, I'll be discussing specifically the English version of Giọng Tây. From my observations at least, there are 3 things that set this accent apart. The first and foremost is that our tones are flatter. This is because we primarily speak in English, which is relatively monotonal. You may have heard the older generation describe the way we speak Vietnamese as lo lo, which means unclear or off the mark. This term is derogatory, and it implies that you're bad at the language. I don't agree with that assessment, and I'll explain why later on. Secondly, we tend to enunciate the final consonant. For example, kak, fab, rut. Technically, it's meant to be smooth like this. Kak, fab, rut. This difference is quite subtle, and when you speak faster, it's barely even noticeable. Finally, when we use English words while speaking Viet, we tend to pronounce it without a Viet accent. For example, instead of tôi sinh tại Sydney, I'd say tôi sinh tại Sydney. Once again, these 3 points are only based on my personal observations of second-generation Aussie Viets. Not all of these features will apply to everyone, and in fact, you may have additional points to add on. But I do believe that the one defining feature of Giọng Tây is the flatter tone. Now, I firmly reject the notion that having Giọng Tây means that you suck at Tiếng Việt. I mean, yes, most of us suck at the language, but that's due rather to our own lack of effort. I've observed a number of second-gen Viet Aussies who speak Tiếng Việt quite well, but they all have a Western accent. So I think it's here to stay, and it's nothing that we should be ashamed of. In future lessons, unless otherwise stated, I'll be using Giọng Tây, which for me, you can probably guess is a fusion of Giọng Nam and the Aussie accent. But I'll make sure to pronounce the consonants correctly, with the exception of X and S, which I won't differentiate. To make things easy, I'll just be referring to my accent as Giọng Nam, but you'll know what I mean. So why did I spend a whole video talking about this topic? Because it's an important part of who we are. We are first and foremost proud citizens of our respective countries. But we are also second-generation Vietnamese, and we should be proud of our heritage. We have a dual identity, and many of us will still struggle with what this means. We all share the same tragic history, and we should never forget it. And thus we're grateful for our freedoms and democracy. We celebrate our country's culture, but we also celebrate Vietnamese culture. We speak many languages, but we share one in common, Tiếng Việt, and we all speak it with a Western accent, Giọng Tây. Tôi thì mong muốn chúng ta có thể giữ được tiếng Việt để mình tiếp tục truyền lại ngôn ngữ cho những thế hệ sau này. This concludes the lesson. Please share if you found this video helpful. Next video, we finally can dive headfirst into the lessons. See you then!